Sai Ram. Have you read the Tapovanam? It is a holy book for daily recitation about the sacred life story of Bhagavan Sri Satyasai Baba. It is to be read as a spiritual exercise dedicated to the Lord. The continuous reading or listening of this book will take us back to the glorious life of Swami. When participating in this holy activity, while focusing on Swami, you will be able to develop your focus and concentration as well as notice an elevation of your inner being. It also brings about a pure heart and sends positive vibrations of peace and love to all mankind. Every event and incident here will take you closer to spiritual realization. The completion of this spiritual activity with devotion and dedication will earn you the grace of our beloved Bhagavan. So do not miss this opportunity. Save the date, make the time, and join us for this devotional reading. Sai Ram.
Chapter 4 Sai Blossoms. This Sai has come in order to achieve the supreme task of uniting the entire mankind as one family through the bond of brotherhood, of affirming and illumining the inner reality of each being in order to reveal the divine, which is the basis on which the entire cosmos rests, and of instructing all to recognize the common divine heritage that binds man to man, so that man can rid himself of the animal and rise to the divine, which is his goal. Baba. Sheshamaraju married the sister of Pashumarti Venkataraju of Kamalapuram in the Kadapa district. He was keen that his younger brother, Satyam, should be given high school education, so he brought the youngster to Kamalapuram and put him in the local high school. But it so happened that Sheshamaraju had to himself leave the place and go elsewhere to undergo teacher's training.
Pushpagiri Festival. Sometime after Satyam got admitted into the high school, the annual festival at Pushpagiri, a temple town nearby, was to be held. The physical education instructor of the school organized a scout troop for doing service during this festival. Satyam enrolled himself in the troop as he felt that it would enable him to do social work and service. As he did not have enough money to spend, he did not join the school group going to Pushpagiri, but went there separately by himself, walking all the way. He could not afford to buy food, so he just fasted all the days he was there. He never mentioned this either to us, to his teacher, or to his companions. He cheerfully participated in all the social service activities of his troop. If anyone asked him whether he had his meals, he would hold out his hand for them to smell. His hand would smell of sweets made of pure ghee. His friends believed that he must have taken some tasty food at some of his relatives' house. The scoutmaster would allocate duties evenly to all the boys in his charge, including Satyam, though Satyam was not as sturdy as the others, restoring missing children to their parents, providing drinking water to the pilgrims, looking after their medical requirements, and rendering first aid. These were some of the activities Satyam was engaged in. But his dedication and assiduousness, Satyam set a fine example as a social worker. The scout troop, of which Satyam was a star in the Pushpagiri festivities, was undoubtedly the precursor of the present-day Sri Satyasai Sevadal, which is rendering yeoman services to mankind throughout the world. On successfully completing his teacher's training course, Seshama Raju was appointed as a Telugu teacher in Uravakonda. As a teacher, he was describing to the children of his class the childish pranks of Balakrishna and Sri Rama, but he could not understand the meaning of the Leelas being displayed in his own home by the God incarnate. But he and his father mistakenly attributed them to goblins and evil spirits. Seshama Raju firmly believed that if his little brother were entrusted to his care, he would soon set him right by liberal use of the rod. With a heavy heart, poor Ishwarama agreed to send her darling son to Uravakonda.
I am the servitor of all. Satyam was admitted in grade 8 in the high school in Uravakonda. He lived with his brother, Seshamaraju. There was no drinking water in the house. It had to be fetched from a well a mile away from town. To meet daily needs, Satyam would bring water every day, morning and evening, making 2 or 3 trips each time. He would carry 2 large containers on each trip, slung one at each end of a bamboo pole balanced on his shoulders. The neighbours soon discovered Satyam's affable and obliging nature. They would ask him, endearingly, to fetch some water for them too, and the lad would cheerfully meet their requirements as well. Satyam returned to Puttaparthi for the holidays. Ishwarama prepared to give her little boy an oil bath. When she set about applying oil to his body, she found calluses on his shoulders. The skin, too, had darkened. He tried to evade her anxious inquiries, but when pressed, he explained with a disarming smile, "It is probably due to my bringing water for our elder brother's household." Eyes brimming, the loving mother inquired why he should have to fetch water. Satyam replied, "How can they live on brackish water? That apart, dear mother, is it not a fact that I have come only to serve people?" The answer brought no solace to the distressed mother. Anne-Marie Marwaha, a lady employed with the German embassy in New Delhi, had enjoyed the good fortune of tasting the sweetness of Bhagavan's love. On one of her visits to Puttaparthi, she asked, "Swami, what is the true nature of your incarnation? I fail to understand it." Bhagavan softly replied, "What shall I say? To tell you in a nutshell, I am the servitor of all." The reply took her by storm. In a torment of pity, she sobbed uncontrollably. She cried, "Why do you say like this, Baba?" Swami explained, "Dear child, that is but the simple truth. Everyone gives me a job to do. Whoever does everyone's errand is indeed the servitor of all. Is it not?" Bhagavan's words and deeds, be them of his childhood days or of the present day, are the same. Swami fetched drinking water as a child. Even today, grown up as he is,
He is still fetching fresh, wholesome drinking water. The only difference is that a new name has now been given to his labours, Sri Satyasai Drinking Water Project. In the olden days, neighbours requested him, "Baba, will you bring some drinking water for us too?" Today, people from neighbouring districts are praying to him, "Baba, will you give some drinking water for us too?" Bhagavan answers with boundless love and affection, "Yes, yes, certainly, certainly." Some of them have only heard of Puttaparthi, but they do not know where it is. They have to inquire and find out how to reach there. In their distress, they make their arduous way to Baba, to their Divine Mother, for succor. And sure enough, the compassionate mother responds, "My poor children have come to me praying, not for sumptuous feast, but for a mere quaff of water." The motherly assurance of Bhagavan comes forth spontaneously. "Surely, surely." It is not one mother speaking, but 1,000 mothers. It is indeed the love of 1,000,000 mothers. Swami achieves single-handedly what an entire government or whole nation could not accomplish. The beneficiaries are his own children. For their welfare, he has spent and is spending hundreds of crores of rupees on a drinking water project. People are grateful, but can this immense debt of love be repaid ever? The Satyasai Drinking Water Project has so far covered about 700 villages and 11 towns. It is considered to be one of the marvels of the world. Water flows through 2,500 kilometers of pipeline and quenches the thirst of 1,000,000 people in the Rayalaseema region of Andhra Pradesh. The nectar-like love of Bhagavan Sri Satyasai Baba is visible in every meter of the long pipeline.
Do deeds match words? During his school days in Uravakonda, Satyam was encouraged and inspired to write a short play dealing with human values. It was significantly titled, Do Deeds Match Words? The details of that play, written a long time back, are topical even today. Scene 1 of the play opens with a woman who is reading and interpreting verses in the Sri Mahabhagavat to a group of women. In the course of a discourse, she exhorts her audience not to waste charity on able-bodied beggars and the indolent, but to help only those who are infirm, disabled, old or handicapped. After the gathering disperses, a blind man approaches her and begs for help. She is annoyed and drives him away. A moment later, a Haridas, wearing prominent caste marks all over his body and singing songs, comes begging for alms. He is playing on a stringed instrument as an accompaniment to his singing. The lady gives him some rice as well as cash, bows to his feet and seeks his blessings. Krishna, her son, is a witness to what has gone by. He is perturbed and asks her, "Dear mother, what did you teach your friends during your religious discourse? And what have you done just now?" She gets wild and shouts at him, "Shut up! Does anybody do as he says?" Scene 2 shows the same boy with his father in the latter's office. His father extols the benefits of education and concludes his speech saying that one should obtain good education, overcoming every obstacle. A poor boy standing outside is overhearing the inspiring words through an open window. He comes in and says, "Sir, thanks to the monetary assistance from high-minded persons like you, I managed to pay my school fees. But now I am short of 1 rupee to pay this month's fee. Kindly help me." The gentleman replies that he does not have even a paisa with him and opens his purse to show that it is empty. After the disappointed student leaves, several colleagues descend on him and ask for contributions for a function and refreshments to welcome an officer newly posted to the office. In his opinion, he tells them such an important occasion deserves to be celebrated on a big scale and gives 20 rupees as his contribution.
His son, Krishna, a mute witness to all this, asks his father, "Daddy, you spoke at length and in glowing terms about the value of education and the importance of getting educated at any cost. But when that poor schoolboy begged for just a single rupee for the sake of educating himself, you turned him down. On the other hand, you have readily parted with 20 rupees for the sake of an ostentatious waste. Why?" The man turns on him in great annoyance. "Do deeds of people match their words? Shut up and go to school." In scene 3, Krishna is seen sitting in his class. His teacher enters in a great flurry. "The inspector of schools is visiting us today," he tells the class. "We have finished 23 lessons so far, but if the inspector asks you, tell him that we've completed 32. I will now do the 33rd lesson. Later, when the inspector comes here, I'll teach it afresh in his presence as if I'm doing it for the first time. Whatever questions I put to you now will be repeated in his presence, so that you will impress him with your correct answers." Krishna meets the teacher a little later when he's alone. He asks him, "Sir, the new lesson you taught us today is about King Sathya Harishchandra, who was dedicated to truth irrespective of consequences. Even as you taught us about such a noble person, you directed us to speak lies. Is it proper?" The teacher flies into a rage and admonishes him. "Is there anyone whose actions accord with his words?" In the 4th and final scene, Krishna flings his books aside and refuses to go to school. Unable to bring him round, the parents send for his teacher. In the presence of all three, the boy says, "You are, of course, teaching me good lessons, but you do not allow me to act on the precepts I hear from you. Of what use are your lessons? I do not want to learn them." The elders are spellbound, but see the point. They relent and express regret. This is the substance of the short play written by Satyam when he was hardly 12 years of age. He also donned Krishna's role when it was played. He conveyed, through that role, to the world that hypocrisy should be eschewed and everyone should live up to his word. From that day right up to this day, he has been exhorting people. Mere words are not enough. Your actions should conform to what you speak. This ringing message reverberates through the entire world and guides every aspirant towards spiritual elevation.
The Missing Horse. When Satyam was at school in Uravakonda, a poor Muslim of that town was making a living by plying a horse carriage. One day his horse went missing. Failing to find it, the poor man came to Satyam for help. The boy directed him to a wood situated about 1.5 miles away from the town. He did so and found his horse grazing there. From then on, Muslims of the town have developed great love and respect for Satyam. News of Satyam's uncommon abilities spread far and wide. Long before this, Shirdi Sai Baba also displayed a similar miracle when a well-to-do Muslim by the name of Chand Bhai Patil of Dubkheda village in the Aurangabad district lost his mare. Disappointed and tired after a fruitless search for the missing beast, he was dejectedly dragging himself home with a saddle on his back. Shirdi Sai Baba saw him, took pity at his despondency, and directed him to search for his mare in the nearby channel. Chand Patil did as told, and to his great surprise and delight found the animal there. Now, what is the deeper meaning of these two similar incidents? The horse or mare represents the human mind that is ever unsteady. One who succeeds in comprehending the true nature of mind is truly a chittachur. Ashwa is the Sanskrit word for horse, meaning one that is perpetually in motion. We normally take ashwa to mean a horse, but it is only its broad meaning. A horse is always in motion, moving its leg, tail, or ear at every moment. Thus, Ashwa stands for the quality of unsteadiness, the state of being continuously disturbed, restless. The Sanskrit word ashwamedha, horse sacrifice, means offering of one's unsteady mind to God. The Sanskrit word ashwatha, people tree, likewise refers to a tree that is in perpetual motion. Even when there is little breeze, its leaves keep moving. The human mind also keeps on wavering, similarly both during sleep and wakefulness. Baba says that horse sacrifice, ashwamedha, does not mean that the animal should be physically killed in flesh and blood and offered to God. The true meaning is that our animal nature should be given up as an offering to God.
Divine puppeteer acts the dancios. When Satyam was at school in Oravakonda, his headmaster arranged a benefit program for raising funds for the school. Rishendra Mani, a celebrated dancer of those days, was to dance. Publicity material was printed and widely distributed. But due to some unexpected developments, she could not keep her appointment. Lakshmipati, the headmaster, got worried and became tense. Satyam approached him and told him not to worry. The item of dance that Rishendra Mani was to perform, he said he would himself do. The amazing item that made her justly famous was indeed very difficult to perform. She would put a bottle made of glass on her head, position a plate thereon, and place some lighted oil lamps in the plate. She would then dance and, while continuing with it, pick up a handkerchief from the ground with her lips. Satyam offered to do something more astounding. Sir, she picks up only a handkerchief with her lips, he said. I will pick up a needle with my eyelids. But please announce that the performing artist is Rishendra Mani herself. Several years later, Swami described in his own words what happened on that day. I was made to wear a sari too big for me. The organizers provided a pigtail of the sort worn by women. As you know, while dancing, the dancer flicks it from side to side. So they made it thick and long, lest it should fall off while I danced. They strongly tied it all over. Strings of bells adorn my ankles. They found a jalopy to carry me from my makeup place to the venue of the dance program. There was a run on tickets as nobody wanted to miss Rishendra Mani's dance. When musical instruments began playing, I gently shook my ankle bells to produce captivating sounds. The audience lost themselves in ecstasy. The headmaster placed a bottle on the crown of my head. Another teacher positioned a plate gingerly thereon and lighted the lamps. Why did they do all this in public? Just to satisfy the doubters who might be thinking that I had all these things fixed firmly and securely on my head? It must be shown to their satisfaction that they were all loosely positioned.
Music was being played for my dance. I was moving round and round on the stage. Even as I danced, I suddenly bent down and picked up with my eyelids a needle placed on the ground. The audience clapped and clapped in delight and applause. The district collector, an Englishman, came to the stage to award a medal to me. His name was Horsley. He wanted to touch me before giving the medal. I refused. He said, I'm just like a brother to you. I want to place this medal around your neck. I replied, I'm just like your sister. Put it into my hand. From the side of the stage, the headmaster was signaling to me that he was the collector and that I should accept without fuss. But as I was standing there as Rishendra Mani, I refused to be touched by the man. Meanwhile, there were claps and noises from the audience, asking the collector to hand over the medal and return to his seat. He gave it to me and went back disappointed. The president of Kadapa district board was Srimati Ramasubhamma during those days. She came to the school on the next day. It is due to Rishendra Mani, she said, that the school could raise so much money for constructing its building. We want to honor her and have brought an expensive sari as a gift for her. She called out for Rishendramani and requested her to come onto the stage. From where could she come? As the audience eagerly awaiting the great dancer, I came running. I was wearing shorts. The guard stopped me. Then our headmaster intervened and told him, "Yesterday's Rishendramani is really this boy. Let him come in." Everyone was puzzled on seeing me. Srimati Ramasubama lifted me up into her arms, kissed me, and said, "My dear child, you are so tender in age, but have brought great honor to us. I am proud that there are talented persons like you in our country." She was all praise for me. Ever since, she showed great love for Swami. Wherever she went, she would narrate tales of Swami's glory. This is how Swami gave a dance program that day in the high school in Uravakonda. The whole universe is a stage for the Supreme Being. Ever since that day, Bhagavan Sri Satyasai has been assuming countless forms and fascinating the world with his melodious music and divine dance.
The Sting of a Scorpion. On the 8th of March 1940, a momentous event took place in Urvakonda. Satyam was stung by a big black scorpion. His body lost sensation. He sank into unconsciousness. The news spread like wildfire and agitated many people. In that region, a sting of a scorpion often meant death. Satyam was administered several injections and medicines, but none availed. Slowly, he recovered in a couple of days, got up on his own, and began to move about. But he seemed to have undergone a total transformation, both mentally and physically. It was as though a spiritual spark, dormant in his inner being, suddenly came to life and began to glow. The effulgence of the Supreme Being comes only after the darkest period. The Lord Shirdi was about to unveil and display in sharp relief the immense body of his own spiritual powers through the medium of this boy. Satyam was often seen lost in his own thoughts. He recited Sanskrit slokas, sang songs, and gave religious discourses. His behaviour was strange and inscrutable. Sesha Maraju and his parents were deeply concerned and confused. Years later, somebody gave a speech in the presence of Baba. He said, "Swami was stung by a scorpion. That is the reason why he acquired spiritual powers from that day." Baba, who spoke after him, stated, "The person who spoke before me said that Swami obtained spiritual powers because of a scorpion sting. Let him be stung by 100 scorpions. Let us see whether it would bring any spiritual powers to him." There was no doubt that the incident of the scorpion sting is merely a turning point in Swami's life. It cannot be the cause of his divine powers. It merely marks the stage of his sankalpam, will, to unveil his divinity.
The bestower of knowledge. Going back to the happenings in Uravakonda, one day Satyam appeared deeply lost in himself. Suddenly, he said, "Narayana Sastri next door is reciting the stanzas in the Sri Mahabhagavat but is committing many mistakes in his exposition. Send for him." Some persons went to the landman and requested him to come and see Satyam. Disdainfully, Sastri said, "Ah, he is but a mere boy. Is he finding fault with my learning? What does he know?" He did not bother to come, but Satyam insisted. This time, the intermediaries could persuade the old man to come into Satyam's presence. The boy explained to him all the errors he had committed. He also put to him some questions on the Puranas, sacred scriptures. The scholarly Sastri admitted his lapses and acknowledged the corrections made by Satyam. Astounded at the young boy's brilliance and erudition, Sastri prostrated himself at his feet. Even now, occasionally, Bhagavan finds scholars whose quest for the supreme reality consists merely of profound study of scriptures, sacred texts and mantras. They devote a lot of their time to scholarly exposition of their deep learning, but in their single-minded dedication to learning, they fail to recognize that the very supreme being they are aspiring to reach through scholarship, the very object of their studies, is present right in front of them in human form.
Scales of intensive learning prevent their eyes from visualizing the ultimate reality in the person near at hand in flesh and blood. Looking far, they miss what is close by. Bhagwan grants such persons proper insight that they are in need of. In this context, it is relevant to recall an interesting incident that reveals Bhagwan's profound knowledge of scriptures. A yajna was performed during the Dashera festivities some years back. Elaborate arrangements were made and a special dais was erected for the purpose. Eminent scholars of the Vedas and other scriptures were in attendance. Some of them had no faith in Baba's divinity. They had not yet acquired sincere love and devotion for him. Probably because of that casual and irreverent attitude, a lapse occurred. One of the scholars, who was reciting a sacred mantra, committed a mistake in pronunciation. Instead of correcting himself promptly, the scholar went ahead, thinking perhaps that his lapse went unnoticed. Bhagavan turned towards him, looked at him seriously for a moment, and sternly said, "Sastri, chant it again properly." The scholar trembled as if he was lashed. Then Swami started reciting that mantra with impeccable intonation. The assembled scholars were astonished and joined Swami in reciting the mantra with proper intonation.
Forbearance. As Satyam's fame spread, people from far and near began flocking to Urvakonda to meet the amazing boy. Tongues wagged. Some said that he was a victim of some evil spell, black magic, that he was possessed by a vile spirit, that he was controlled by a demon, and that a tantric or witchcraft might cure him. The distraught Seshamaraju brought in a worshipper of goddess Shakti to help. Satyam chastised him. "You are worshipping me every day. You are seeking my blessings daily, so how dare you now come to give me treatment? Bow to my feet with reverence and depart like a good boy." The poor man got frightened, saluted Satyam and left. Satyam was brought back from Urvakonda to Puttaparthi by his parents. He was shown to well-known doctors of Bellary and Dharmavaram. None of them could diagnose his problem. Now and then, Satyam would suddenly cry out, "There, Devatas, celestial beings, are coming." Offer Arati, sacred lighting of lamps and camphor, as a mark of devotion. Such utterances used to puzzle and distress members of his household. They were told of a reputed exorcist near the town of Kadari, who could drive away even the vilest and the most intractable evil spirit. Peda Venkamaraju decided to take Satyam to him. Together with his daughters Seshamaraju and Satyam, Peda Venkamaraju travelled there in a bullock cart. The exorcist had a dreadful mien and fiery eyes. He subjected the 14-year-old boy to crude procedures and cruel corporal punishment. He gashed the victim's shaven head with a razor at several places. While blood flowed in streams, he poured lemon juice and onion juice into the wounds. He rubbed an ointment in his eyes, which is notorious for causing unbearable smarting. He poured 101 pots of water on the bloodied and burning head. The inhuman torture which Satyam silently bore with fortitude and forbearance shocked his unfortunate and helpless family members. They felt shaken and remorseful. The exorcist grew ruder because he believed that the devilish spirit that possessed Satyam was unyielding. Unable to bear their mental agony and having surrendered their dear child to such inhuman torture, the family begged the tormentor to give the boy some respite. They pleaded that after he recovered somewhat, he would be brought back to further treatment. Satyam was thus rescued from further torture at the hands of the exorcist. Years later, a Haridas was rendered Bhagavan Sri Satyasai Baba's life in his very presence. As he reached this particular episode of Swami's bodily torture at the hands of a heartless brute, Swami intervened. "Those details are too painful even to hear. Skip over them, Bangaru." Sometime later, Sri Kasturi added, "Swami, you found it so painful even to hear of those sufferings. Why did you agree at all to undergo such inhuman treatment at that time?" The reply of Bhagavan Sai is very revealing. He explained, whatever be the suffering this body is put to, it would not affect me. I transcend happiness and sorrow of every kind. I wanted to demonstrate these aspects of mine to the world. That is why I endured all those tortures with patience and forbearance. I invite that punishment willingly, because my suffering would convince people of my spirituality. They would develop trust and faith in me and set foot in the rewarding realm of devotion to God, Bhakti. There was a lawyer in the town of Penugonda called Krishnamacharilu. He came down to Puttaparthi to see Satyam and concluded that his condition was much more serious than he had imagined. He advised Satyam's elders to take him to the temple of Gatichalam. He felt that darshan of Lord Narasimha, the man-lion avatar of Lord Sri Mahavishnu, the preceding deity, there would cure Satyam. On hearing the words of the lawyer, Satyam smiled and asked him, "Sir, I am the preceding deity of Gatichalam. Are you advising that I should be taken for my own darshan?"
I am Sai Baba. It was now 23rd May 1940. Satyam was sitting in the front portico of his home in Puttaparthi, materializing sugar candy and flowers and distributing them to one and all. The scene was one of merriment and delight. Some went to Pedavenkamaraju and invited him to come and enjoy the wonderful spectacle. The poor father could not tolerate what he thought was his son's cheap trickery or sleight of hand. He picked up a stout stick and marched to Satyam and demanded, "Who are you? Tell me, are you God or an evil spirit?" Satyam looked at his father. He was perfectly serene. Calmly but clearly and firmly he said, "I am Sai Baba. I am of Apastamba Stotra and of Bharad Vajasa Gotra. I have come to rescue all of you, smitten as you are with fear and lack of mental equanimity. Your ancestor, Venka Avaduta, prayed to me to take birth in your family. In response to his prayers, I have incarnated." Pedavenkamaraju was thunderstruck. He did not notice that the big stick in his hand slipped to the floor. Why did his father, Pedavenkamaraju, become so overcome and speechless in a moment? Why did he undergo such immediate transformation at the mention of the great Avaduta's name? The house of Kodamaraju, father of Pedavenkamaraju, used to be visited often by a great person called Venka Avaduta. He wore a perpetual smile on his face. He was a picture of spiritual equanimity and bliss. The clothes he wore would wear out and be reduced to shreds on his body, but he never cared. If he placed his palm on any person's head, that person would taste profound spiritual experience. Nobody knew where he stayed, when he would come and where he would go. He was a sannyasi in every sense of the term. He was just like a piece of wood floating free in a stream of water. Such realized noble persons who have attained supreme levels of renunciation and non-involvement are known as avadutas. In the learned opinion of those familiar with sublime realms of knowledge, Venka Avaduta was the same as Venkusa, who had fostered Shirdi Sai in his childhood. The Avaduta used to spend time now and then with Kodamaraju discussing spiritual matters.
One day, both of them sat conversing in a banana plantation. All of a sudden, Venka Avduta fell silent. Kadamba Raju inquired why he so abruptly became silent. The reply was, "Kadamba Raju, Mother Earth is weeping. Don't you hear her sobs?" Kadamba Raju stared in disbelief. Venka Avduta went on, "Very soon the Supreme Being will incarnate himself on earth in human form. You're destined to witness this incarnation." He repeated the words a couple of times. He asked Kadamba Raju to place his hand in his own and assert that he earnestly believed the extraordinary prediction. Sometime later,
Venkabdhuta left his physical body. Now, Peda Venkamaraju heard his son mentioning the glorious names of the great ancestral saints. Like a flash, he remembered the closeness of the divine person with this family, and also his fantastic prediction about the coming incarnation. When details of what happened reached the ears of the aged Kadamba Raju, his eyes swam in tears of happiness. But then there was a small hitch. None of them who were present there heard Satyam speak, knew who Sai Baba was. Who was he? Peda Venkamaraju heard that a government official had arrived at Penugonda on transfer in his job, and also that he daily worshipped a fakir called Sai Baba. So one day he took his son to him. That gentleman saw the boy and declared that he was suffering some brain disorder and needed to be admitted in the hospital for proper treatment. On hearing his advice, Satyam asked him, "Whose brain is ill, yours or mine? You daily worship this very Sai present right before you in flesh and blood, and fail to recognize him as you have no brain." He asked him to hold his hand, and waving his hand, materialized heaps of vibhuti and poured it into his hand. He also threw it all over the terrified man's residence. On Thursday, one of the persons gathered around Satyam asked him for some proof that he was Sai Baba. Satyam asked him whether he did indeed need proof, but then he called for some jasmine flowers. Taking them in his hands, he flung them onto the floor, and to astonishment of everyone, the flowers arranged themselves to read Sai Baba in the Telugu scripture. All doubts melted away.
The Great Annunciation. It was now Monday, 20th of October, 1940. Satyam was then in Urvakonda, having resumed his interrupted schooling. He was on his way to school when suddenly he turned back, returned home, flung his books away, and cried out loudly, "I no longer belong to you. Maya, delusion has left me. My devotees are eagerly calling me." On hearing these loud words, his sister-in-law looked out of her kitchen window. She saw a halo of blinding luminescence around Satyam's head. "I am leaving," he told her. "The work I have come here for has to be initiated." As he said these words, his brother Seshama Raju and the neighbor Narayana Sastri arrived on the scene. On seeing the splendorous halo, Sastri fell at the feet of Satyam. Seshama Raju stood speechless and motionless. Glorious with a crown of effulgent light, Satyam walked to a nearby large garden belonging to Anjaneyulu, an inspector of excise. He sat on a boulder there. Several eager devotees sat around him. Satyam began singing a bhajan song, the first in the vast body of bhajan songs, which are now resounding all over the world. Manasa bhajare guru charanam, dustara bhavasakara taranam. First, learn that you are in Bhavasagra, ocean of worldly life. Next, resolve on Taranam, crossing it. Then fix a Guru or any name and form of God which appeals to you. Then dwell on His glory. Do bhajan, but do it with all your mind and concentration. Sing in praise of the Master's lotus feet with all your heart. It enables you to cross the difficult to cross ocean of the birth and death cycle. Devotees forgot themselves as they sang in tune with him. Some lighted joysticks, others garlanded Satyam. A photographer turned up and prepared to photograph him. A small rock stood in front of Satyam, intruding into the picture, and the cameraman desired it to be removed. Satyam said, "Let it be. Go ahead and take a photograph." When the film was eventually developed and printed, that small stone was seen to the astonishment of everyone as Shirdi Sai Baba's form.
Reference to Bhagwan Satyasai Baba in ancient treatises. Dr. E.V.V. Shastri, a member of the Astrological Research Society of India, studied several Nadi treatises, written thousands of years ago by various sages, and discovered therein many stunning references to Bhagwan Satyasai Baba, which he published. Some excerpts are given here. The Agastya Nadi says, Satyasai Baba will heal diseases of people with lightning speed. By his mere will, he will bestow health. Many educational institutions will be established by him. He will publish numerous books on spiritual subjects. He will develop spirituality in humanity. To establish Dharma and to resuscitate Dharma will constitute the principal features of his mission. In his earlier incarnation, he would be Shirdi Sai Baba. He will be the embodiment of kindness and compassion. He is the Father of the universe. He will be an all-merciful avatar of God, preceptor, protector, and Father of the world. The Buddha Nadi records, Baba will be eternally immersed in Anandam, bliss. The Shukra Nadi says, his residence will be called Prashanti Nilayam. By emphasizing the principles of Sathya, Dharma, Shanti, and Prema, he will spread peace all through the world. He always delights in serving humanity. He will be possessing all powers and siddhis. The person of divine aspects will be previously Shirdivasi, resident of Shirdi. He is Sangalpa Siddha. Whatever he wills happens. He will be in Nirvikalpa, Samadhi state. He is God incarnate. He will derive immense joy in the service of mankind. Sri Chinnadurai consulted Brahma Nadi and found therein precise references to Bhagwan Sri Satyasai. In his life, Thursdays will be sacred days. By the way he will live and act, he would create the illusion of being just an ordinary individual residing in Puttaparthi. He will bear the name of Narayana. He will be the incarnation of Shiva Shakti and the reincarnation of Shirdi Sai. Born on the banks of the river Chitravati in a tranquil environment, he will be the embodiment of supreme equanimity.
In the Nadi preserved carefully in the Subramanya temple in Parani, it is written, in the Andhra region surrounded by Tamil, Kerala, and Karnataka lands, on the banks of the river Chitravati, God will incarnate himself. His name will be Satyanarayana. He is a great yogi, supreme yogi. He never goes to sleep. In Padma Puran, authored by the great Rishi Parasara, it is written, in the village named Parthi will be born a person called Satyam. He will be 5 feet 3 inches high. He will act like a powerful magnet capable of drawing to himself the whole world. Baba himself informed devotees that Padma Puran was translated into English by an Englishman called Wilson. Baba also said that the complete copy of Jaimini Bharatam, which contains clear references to Satyasai, is in the possession of some spiritually elevated persons. In Vishnu Puran, it was mentioned that he will display great superhuman powers in establishing the new age of truth. His parents will be devotees of Lord Vishnu and will reside in a village worshipping the cowherd form of Sri Krishna.
Sri Aurobindo was a great yogi, Mahayogi, and a great rishi, Maharishi. He was immersed in intense spiritual sadhana, practice of austerities and meditation, at his ashram in Pondicherry between 1923 and 1926. He was praying that God should take birth in this world for the spiritual elevation of mankind. On 24th November 1926, he emerged out of his samadhi, spiritual trance, and announced, "Yesterday, God incarnated himself on the earth. With his boundless divine powers, he will direct humanity's mind towards higher, nobler goals. In every heart, he will light a spiritual lamp. His godly voice will ring in the ears of the whole of humanity." It is clear from the date of incarnation mentioned by Maharishi Aurobindo that he was referring to Sri Satyasai only.
Prophet Muhammad's discourses were published in 25 volumes, 7 centuries after his death. The collection of these volumes is named the Ocean of Light. Several symbolic features by which the coming master of the world could be identified have been mentioned in the volume 13. Mehdi Maud, meaning in Arabic the great teacher who was promised. They are, he will have very thick hair on his head. His forehead will be broad. He will have a birthmark on his cheek. His face will always look clean shaven. He will wear only a pair of clothes. His dress will be of flaming red color. The color of his face will look sometimes like copper, sometimes golden, sometimes brownish, and sometimes like the moon. His physical form will be small. His feet will be delicate like those of a young girl. Right from the moment of his birth, he will carry all knowledge in his head. So also the entire corpus of the world's religions and precepts will be in him right from his birth. He can grant whatever one prays to God for. All the riches of the world will lie at his feet. He will go amidst his devotees, move among them, and touch their heads with his palm. Whosoever sets eyes on him will experience supreme bliss. He will take residence on a hill. He will live for 95 years. He will fill the world with peace and tranquility. This Lord of the world will produce his own forms or symbols out of his own body and his mouth. In this manner, as many as 27 references have been made which clearly and unmistakably apply to Bhagavan Sri Satyasai. Nostradamus, the French futurist of the 16th century, wrote a book called Centuries, in which he wrote, "The coming ruler of the world will appear in Asia. The triplicity of waters will give birth to him. He will consider Thursdays as sacred. All the countries of the world will wonder at and admire him for his boundless wisdom and powers. From all parts of the world, people will come to honor him." The book of Revelations in the Bible describes the advent of the great master. An angel appears before John and reveals, "Behold a white horse, and he that sat upon it was called Faithful and True. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head are many crowns. He was clothed with the vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God. Out of his mouth
goeth a sharp sword. The embodiment of compassion and love, Bhagwan Sri Satyasai Baba has been so described in numerous religious treatises. 100 salutations to his lotus feet. Om Shri Satyasai Parabrahmane Namaha. Shanti Shanti Shantihi. End of chapter 4.
Chapter 5. Resurrection of Dharma. Whenever there is a languishing of Dharma, I create myself, for it is part of my primal resolution or sankalpa to protect the spiritual structure of the universe. I lay aside my formless essence and assume a name and a form suited to the purpose for which I come. Whenever evil threats to vanquish good, I have to come and save it from decline. Baba. Revitalization of temples. Badrinath. Bhagwan has often proclaimed that one of the important purposes of his incarnation is the revitalization of the divine potency of deities in ancient temples. As a part of the program, on 11th June 1961, Baba set out on a journey to the famous Badrinath temple situated in the Himalayas in Uttar Pradesh. He was accompanied by his parents as well as several devotees. Sri Burgula Ramakrishna Rao, governor of Uttar Pradesh, joined the pilgrims at Haridwar. Baba quipped with them. Normally, devotees go to Badri to see Lord Narayana there. You are going there in the company of Lord Narayana to see the idols installed in the temple. Baba described the spiritual glory of the Badrinath temple thus. The great ascetic Adi Shankaracharya prayed to Lord Shiva and received from him 5 lingams. He installed them, one each in Badri in Uttar Pradesh in the Himalayas, Puri in Orissa, Sringeri in Karnataka, Dwaraka in Gujarat, and Chidambaram in Tamil Nadu. As nearly 200 devotees watched in fascination in the Badrinath temple, Baba waved his open hand and materialized a plate of gold that held 1,000-petaled golden lotus. He placed the golden lotus in another plate made of silver. By another movement of his hand, he produced a lingam. He explained that it was Netralingam installed underneath the idol of Lord Badrinath by Adi Shankara himself 1,200 years ago. While the idol is visible to visitors and worshipped by them every day, the lingam lay concealed ever since its installation. Only now was it brought to view by Baba for worship. Netram in Sanskrit means eye. True to its name, the Netralingam clearly showed a wide open eye. Baba placed it in the golden lotus. With another wave of his hand, he now produced a vessel of silver filled with sacred waters of Gangotri, the place of origin of the holy river Ganga, the Ganges. Baba touched the bottom of the vessel with his finger, and when he withdrew it, water began to fall on the Netralingam like an abhishekam. The touch of his finger apparently made a hole in the bottom of the vessel. When the abhishekam was over, Sri Sai Baba shook his hand, and gold and silver flowers flowed out and covered the Netralingam as abhishekam of flowers. Lord Shiva is reputed to be particularly fond of thumi flowers. These are white in color and very, very tiny, roughly 5 millimeters long. When the temple priest mentioned this to Baba, he materialized a heap of fresh thumi flowers. The Netralingam was now worshipped with those blossoms. Bhagavan revitalized the Netralingam through this worship and, with his miraculous powers, restored it to its original invisible place beneath the idol of Lord Badrinath. On return to Puttaparthi, Baba addressed the devotees who could not make the trip to Badrinath. Do not feel disappointed, he told them, that you could not undertake the pilgrimage and missed out on the spiritual rewards thereof. Lord Sri Narayana is surely here beside you, with you, right in front of you. Have this Narayana's darshan to your heart's content. Why do you crave for the darshan of the idol form of Narayana situated at a far off place? Worship this living form of Narayana who is right before your eyes at this very place with devotion and dedication and attain spiritual bliss.
Varanasi. There is another ancient place of worship which received similar grace and re-infusion of spiritual efficacy at the divine hands of Bhagavan. This time, it was a trip to Varanasi on 2nd April 1961. Swami's parents and Sri Borgula Ramakrishna Rao, then Governor of Uttar Pradesh, and others accompanied him. On nearing the lingam of Lord Visveswara, the Master of the Universe, Baba produced Kailasa Vibhuti in his usual way and applied it on the lingam's face in 3 broad bands. He also materialized sandalwood paste and used it to decorate the lingam with a broad circular dot in the center of the Vibhuti bands. Then he created a golden ornament resplendent with 3 circles of glittering diamonds, rubies, and emeralds. He placed it in the midst of the dot of sandalwood paste. In the wink of an eye, the piece remained stuck there firmly. Lord Viswanatha, the Lord of Varanasi, looked all the more glorious. Somnath. On the invitation of the Rajmata, Maharani of Jamnagar, Baba visited the Somnath temple in Gujarat. Soma means Sa plus Uma, that is Lord Shiva, together with his consort Uma, also known as Parvati. It is well known in history that King Muhammad of Ghazni invaded India several times. He ransacked this rich temple time and again and carried away huge hoards of jewelry of gold and diamonds. On the last raid, he uprooted the majestic Shiva Lingam and looted the large quantities of precious stones embedded underneath the deity. In place of the original lingam, thus desecrated, the temple priests installed a new stone lingam and ever since carried on the prescribed sacred services to the newly anointed deity. Digvijaya Sahed, the Maharaja of Jamnagar, was keen to restore the temple to its pristine glory. It entailed expense of enormous labor as well as resources. Despite these problems, he persisted with his mission and finally crowned the beauty of the temple by erecting a mighty tower, named Digvijaya Gopuram Temple Tower. It was inaugurated by Bhagwan Sai Baba. Entering the sanctum sanctorum of the temple, he materialized golden bilva leaves. Bilva leaves are considered to be particularly dear to Lord Shiva, and showered them on the 4 feet high lingam as Abhisekam. By his divine will, he brought out the lingam into his hands and showed it to the gathering. It was shimmering bright like lightning. After revitalizing it with his divine touch, he did not return it to its earlier invisible abode as he had done in Badrinath. Instead, he declared, "From now on, this temple shall ever remain free from any attack. No despoiler from any quarter shall lay his evil hand on this temple. There is no danger to it anymore. I am therefore making this lingam freely available for public darshan and worship by devotees." He then materialized a silver pitham pedestal and installed the lingam thereon.
Dwaraka. During that trip, Baba and the attendant devotees reached Dwaraka, the abode of Lord Krishna. Swami made his way into the temple precincts and sanctified them with the touch of his divine feet. Lord Sai Krishna of the present age gave darshan to thousands of people gathered. He then proceeded to the seashore followed by devotees. Asking them to sit around him on the sands, he made a small mound of sand, inserted his hand into it, and pulled out a golden figure of Lord Krishna. This wondrous event has made the Dwaraka temple replete with divine potency, declared Bhagavan Sai Baba. Sri Sailam, another ancient temple that attained spiritual rejuvenation at the divine touch of Sri Satyasai Baba is the temple of Lord Mallikarjuna or Lord Shiva in Srisailam in Andhra Pradesh. Bhagavan visited this temple on 5th January 1963. As at the Somnath temple, here too, Baba entered the sanctum sanctorum, produced golden bilva leaves and golden thumi flowers, and showered them on Lord Mallikarjuna in Abhishekam. Pandharpur. On 13 June 1965, Baba visited Pandharpur in Maharashtra, where Lord Krishna is worshipped as Panduranga Vittal. As he entered the inner sanctum and had darshan of Lord Panduranga and his consort Rukmini Devi, he created an opal gem set necklace and adorned the neck of the goddess. These are occasions when Bhagavan Sri Satyasai Baba visited important places of worship and recharged and revitalized the spiritual potency of the presiding deities. Every temple is, after all, the sacred abode of Swami himself. Human body is but the seat of God. It is a temple in itself. The possessor of the human body is truly God. Every human being should ponder over the inner meaning and significance of the form and the structure of the temple.
Resuscitation of Vedic Dharma. A few months after returning from Badrinath, Bhagwan decided that a yajna should be performed at Prashanti Nilayam. At his instructions, several Vedic scholars from North India and also from the area of Konasima in Andhra Pradesh gathered at Puttaparthi. Baba gave directions for the performance of the yajna, strictly in accordance with Vedic structures. Baba announced, as a part of the mission of my incarnation, I am laying the foundation for the proper care of the cow and the Brahmin for the sustenance of the Vedas and through them for the resuscitation of Vedic Dharma itself. The planned yajna, for which hectic preparations were soon underway, was named Veda Purusha Saptaha Jnana Yajna. The proceedings were spread over 7 days, Saptaha, synchronizing with the Dashara festives in October 1961. Veda Purusha, the presiding deity, was Baba himself. Distinguished scholars of the Vedas and the Vedic rituals were in charge of the various activities. Veda Samrat Brahma Shri Cherukumilli Kamavadhanulu was the overall supervisor, Sarva Adhyaksha. Amnaya Artha Vachaspati Brahma Shri Uppuluri Ganapati Shastri was to preside over the seminar meetings to be held on Vedas and other spiritual and theological subjects. Eminent scholars and Ganapatis, Shri Bulusu Appana Shastri, Shri Kadiyala Sitarama Shastri, Shri Kuppa Bairaga Shastri, Shri Vemparala Suryanarayana Shastri, Shri Kompella Ammanna Shastri, and Shri Hota Venkatarama Shastri participated in that glorious ritual. It was truly a galaxy of the brightest hue in the firmament of Vedic Dharma. The proceedings comprised Parthiva Shivalinga Archana, Mantra Japam, Parayanam of the holy text of Ramayanam, Sri Mahabhagavat, Devi Bhagavatam, Sri Bhashyam and others, and also Surya Namaskarams and Navagraha Japams. Parayanam of the Rig, Yajur and Samaveda was a veritable feast to the ears of the devotees, and to crown it all, the Atirudha Yajna was performed with utmost attention to the minutest detail of the prescribed ritual. The entire 7-day proceedings were immensely satiating and spiritually rewarding to the vast concourse. On the concluding day, Bhagwan Sri Satyasai Baba gave a discourse. Very significantly, he addressed the assembly, Atma Swarupalala, O embodiments of the self, he went on, the purpose of my incarnation is to establish Dharma and thereby secure peace and equanimity and happiness to all people in every land. My Sankalp knows no going back. Nobody can resist the onward march of my mission. It is bound to triumph. This is certain, absolutely certain.
In my earlier incarnation, I had made it clear that any and every yajna performed for fulfilling narrow personal desires don't result in true well-being. Only Jnana Yajna, which aims at promotion of universal well-being, is the best yajna. Yajna stands for sacrifice, tyaga. Tyaga can only be selflessness. The Vedas prescribe that yajna should be performed with a view to obtaining grace of the gods. Materials like ghee and other edibles are to be offered as the Vedas lay down to gods through Agni, the god of fire. Agni passes them on to the gods they are intended for. Small minded persons may well doubt this. Is it true? Can such a thing be possible? We go to the local post office and send money to specified individuals. The money is indeed reaching them, but their residence near or far away. Then why doubt the Vedic assertion? The gods are pleased and satisfied and give us timely rain. Crops flourish and give us food. Food gives life and sustains it. Thus, yajna is at the very root of universal well being. Yajna originates in karma. Karma takes its birth from Brahman. Brahman is the form of Akshara Purusha. Pranavam is very form of that Akshara. And Pranavam is at the root of the Vedas. That is why it has been laid down that a yajna, which is performed and directed in my name and my form, is the most suitable one for humans. Those who have partaken the fruits of this yajna will be ever content and happy in their worldly life, and when they depart this world, attain merger with the supreme divine principle. There is absolutely no doubt about it.
On a different occasion, while speaking during the celebrations of a yagna, Bhagavan said, ages ago, people forgot the noble principles of sacrifice, selflessness, and loving service. Evil tendencies like greed, avarice, and selfishness flourished. The Vedas assumed the form of a black deer and ran away into the dense reaches of a forest. The great rishis and Vedic scholars went in search of it, but all their efforts failed. They could retrieve only its skin. In remembrance of that incident, while performing yagna as prescribed in the Vedas, the Ritviks, that is, the priests engaged in offering oblations to the accompaniment of incantations, even today don black deer skin and sit on a similar skin while offering oblations to Agni. To the outward eye, it is just a piece of skin or charmam, but viewed from the angle of yagna, it is sharmam, which means happiness and spiritual bliss. Those who take active part in the performance of the yagna experience bliss themselves and also spread bliss to the whole world. The ultimate goal of any yagna performed in Prashanti Nilayam is sacrifice. In other words, spiritual bliss which takes shape out of total renunciation of the fruits of karma. Such yagna is not meant to benefit merely any single individual or country. Its purpose is to bring about universal well being. At the conclusion of every yagna and after the final rite of valedictory offering, that is Purna Ahuti, offering to Agni whatever materials remain out of what had been initially collected for the yagna. Swami personally sprinkled the holy waters of the ritual onto the thousands of people present at the venue, thereby bestowing on them spiritual absolution.
Who else knows the right muhurtam Apart from renowned Vedic scholars and experts in Vedic rituals, those proficient in chanting Vedic mantras with proper intonation and accuracy were in charge of the Jnana Yajna. Bhagwan Sri Satyasai Baba fixed the muhurtam, that is auspicious moment, for commencement of the holy program as 9:30 a.m. on 1st of October 1961. The scholars made their own calculations with reference to the planetary positions and astronomy and decided that 7:30 a.m. would be the most appropriate time for entering the Yagashala, that is venue for the yajna, and commencing the proceedings. When they placed their opinion before Swami, he said, "I think 9:30 a.m. would be the most auspicious moment. Give it a little more thought." Among the scholars entrusted with the task were Sri Varanasi Subramanya Shastri, Sri Cherukumelli Kamavadini, and Sri Kuppa Bairagi Shastri, who were the ones aware of the Sai spirituality. Whatever that might be, the scholars informed Swami again that 7:30 a.m. would be the most appropriate time. Swami agreed. Did they notice a twinkle in his eyes and a smile on his lips? On the appointed day, the Ritviks and Vedic savants had their ritual bath in the river Chitravati and completed their Sandhya Vandanam, that is, morning prayers to the sun god, by 6:30 a.m. Clad in their silk clothes presented by Swami and holding silver vessels filled with holy water, they started for the Yagashala exactly at 7 a.m. so as to reach the Yagashala at 7:30 a.m. sharp. Suddenly the skies opened up. There was torrential rain accompanied by thunder and lightning. The downpour continued without respite till 9 a.m. The river Chitravati was in flood and the group of priests got stuck up there. Although the muhurtam set by them had been washed away by rains and flood, they were happy to acknowledge Swami's all-knowing wisdom. The skies were clear and everything became normal by 9 a.m. As the auspicious muhurtam, originally fixed by him, approached, Bhagwan Sri Satyasai made his way to the Yagashala leading a horde of Ritviks reciting sacred Vedic hymns. Hundreds of devotees were heartily singing bhajan songs. Devotional instrumental music appropriate to the splendid occasion was being played. Precisely at 9:30 a.m., the muhurtam, which had been finalized by him, Baba entered the venue and set in motion the proceedings of the week-long yajna.
The Yajna Kalasam. A day or two before the yajna was to commence, Swami summoned Brahma Shri Shivarama Bhairagi Shastri, who was to head the team of Ritviks. He told him the yajna should be performed with strict adherence to the prescribed tenets. As regards material, nothing should be wanting. Well before the yajna is to commence, carefully prepare a list of items required and give it to me. I will see that everything is provided. Sri Shastri made out a long list in consultation with his fellow Ritviks. Whatever was listed was procured and placed at their disposal. Nevertheless, just about 5 minutes before Swami was scheduled to leave for the Yajnashala, Sri Bhairagi Shastri suddenly recollected that the most important item, the Yajna Kalasham, the principal vessel which occupies pride of place in the proceedings, had been inadvertently omitted from his list of materials. But who would bring this serious mistake to Swami's notice at this late juncture? And how to tell Swami? He was in an unbearable torment. There was no time to lose. He collected all courage, decided to take responsibility on his own unfortunate shoulders, and informed Swami. He prayed to Swami to pardon him for his unpardonable lapse. Swami was his usual merciful self. With soft words and reassurance, he gently asked, "I had asked you to prepare the list carefully, well before the yajna. You have only 5 minutes now." He went into his room and within 3 minutes emerged with the silver kalasham in his hand. It displayed exquisite craftsmanship worthy of the great occasion and was adorned with images of several deities. Swami told the astonished Sastri, During my incarnation as Shirdi Sai, I kept it in the palace of the Chincholi rulers. It was lying there in a room full of old and discarded pieces. I have just gone there, searched for it, and brought it here, which has taken all this time. Now that this is confirming to the specifications laid down in the scriptures, go ahead and commence the proceedings on time. Etched on that vessel were the initials SABA in Hindi, indicating obviously that it had belonged to Sai Baba. Several years later, when he was giving a speech in the presence of Swami in the auditorium, Sri Bhairaga Shastri recounted this engrossing incident in detail.
Ayudha Puja. Traditionally, on the Vijayadashmi day during the Dashera celebrations, weapons of war are worshipped. It is called Ayudha Puja. Ayudha means weapon. Baba says the 6 evil tendencies which envelop man's nature and act as hindrances to his spiritual progress, viz. Kama, desire, Krodha, anger, Lobha, avarice, miserliness, Moha, infatuation, Mada, pride and arrogance, and Matsarya, jealousy, should also be likewise worshipped. But here there is a subtle difference. Their worship consists of turning them towards God, so that instead of obstructing the aspirant's progress, they would actually help it. Thus, the very tendencies which are ordinarily considered to be evil are metamorphosed into good. How can it be possible? Let us hear what Baba says. Kama is intense compulsive desire, directed towards God. It then changes into a craving to have darshan of the Lord, to win His favor, to obtain His grace. Kama takes the shape of eagerness to reach God. Krodha means anger. Turn it towards God and ask angrily, why has He not come to me? How long should I keep waiting? What fault have I committed? Why does He not bestow His grace on me? Hold it all against Him and persist with your impatience. Your anger is transformed into determination, a positive beneficial trait in your life. Lobha means miserliness. When you turn it towards God, you begin to feel intense possessiveness. You feel, He belongs to me and to me only. He is my Lord and I belong to none else. Your mind cries out. It intensely desires to get hold of God, to possess Him totally and exclusively. Lobha transmutes itself into intense craving for God and helps one to hold on to Him with single-minded possessiveness. Moha means infatuation, loss of one's sense of discrimination. When it is directed towards God, one feels that one cannot live without God. Life in this world holds no charm, has no meaning any longer without the company of God. Then the mind refuses to hear to reason, cares for no one. It's turned crazy in its longing for God. Moha transforms into blind and compulsive devotion to God. Mada means pride coupled with arrogance. When you turn it towards God, you feel, I have the support and grace of God. I have great clout. None can dare to cross my path. I fear nothing. How can God desert me? Such thinking changes Mada into faith and trust in God. Matsarya means jealousy. When it is directed towards God, you will feel, my God, my own Lord is being enticed away by somebody. He is distancing me. Such thoughts make you agitated, and you find that your Matsarya is soon transformed into overpowering desire for closeness with God. Lions in a circus dutifully obey the ringmaster. Similarly, if man's 6 evil tendencies are subordinated to their master, they lose their natural wildness and become subdued. This is the true meaning and significance of Ayudha Puja. Some of the devotees bought pearls, corals and gold to be offered as oblations in the Yajna Kundam, ceremonial fire in which ritual offerings are made to Agni during Yajna. Swami exhorted them, make offerings of your gunas in the Yajna Kundam. Those are the precious pearls and jewels you will do well to give up. When performing Yajna, one should aim at achieving a higher goal of elevating one's soul. That really is the glorious fruition of the arduous process of Yajna. Om Shri Satyasai Parabrahmane Namaha. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. End of chapter 5.
Sai Ram. Have you read the Tapovanam? It is a holy book for daily recitation about the sacred life story of Bhagavan Sri Satyasai Baba. It is to be read as a spiritual exercise dedicated to the Lord. The continuous reading or listening of this book will take us back to the glorious life of Swami. When participating in this holy activity, while focusing on Swami, you will be able to develop your focus and concentration as well as notice an elevation of your inner being. It also brings about a pure heart and sends positive vibrations of peace and love to all mankind. Every event and incident here will take you closer to spiritual realization. The completion of this spiritual activity with devotion and dedication will earn you the grace of our beloved Bhagavan. So do not miss this opportunity. Save the date, make the time, and join us for this devotional reading. Sai Ram.
Sairam all. Just a reminder, we are now live on YouTube and Facebook. You can search on YouTube for Sai Organisation of Australia. Please subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon to receive updates and reminders of our upcoming inspirational programs. On Facebook, please search for Sai Organisation of Australia and like and follow our account. Please visit our website on sai.org.au to keep updated with upcoming programs in the 96 Days devotional offerings, news of our service activities, and inspirational updates.